Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you about the customizer, arrows and scanner indicators. This is available for free on my website for the first few weeks while I'm still coming up with good strategies to use with this. So this is a signal generator tool that is written for Metatrader 4 platform. You can specify your own custom indicators to use with this. So anything that you have an ex4 file for, you can use in this tool. You can specify your own buffers and you can create variables using that, and then you can use these variables to create your own buy and sell conditions, and that will give you up and down arrow signals, and you can use these signals in the scanner, and you can also get how many past bars that particular signal had occurred, and you can get alerts for new signals. And what this tool doesn't support, so it doesn't support the inbuilt Metatrader indicators. So if you want to use something like moving average, ADX, etc., then you can always write your own wrapper indicators, and you can use those wrappers to create buffer values, and you can use these buffers inside the customizer tool. And another thing it doesn't support is changing the properties of custom indicator. So suppose you have MQL4 code for these indicators, then you can always change the values directly in the code, and if you don't have the MQL4 files, then you can create wrapper indicators same as you would for the inbuilt ones, and you can use those wrappers to change the properties, and you can use those values from the buffer inside the customizer. And no complex calculations are allowed in the conditions. I'll show you what I mean by this. You just have left and right values and comparisons. Be careful when you are using your custom indicators. If you are using too many indicators and you are using like 28 pairs for 3 time frames and a lot of past bars, then your scanner might get too slow, or you might even have memory issues. So just be careful to use lightweight custom indicators with this, and if your ex4 files are very heavy, then use fewer pairs and fewer time frames. So let me first show you what this actually looks like, and then we will one by one go over how to set up this customizer for a particular strategy. So here is the customizer properties, and as you can see, we have all of these. You can define maximum 20 variables, and how the variable works is the first value you have to specify a unique name for that variable. For example, right here we have RSI as the unique name, and suppose if you're using RSI, then you cannot use something like RSI1, RSI2, etc., because then RSI1 will conflict with this RSI variable name. And the next field that we have is the indicator, the ex4 name, and that ex4 name should follow the same directory structure that you have. For example, in my MQL4 indicators folder, I have a TDI folder, and inside that TDI folder I have this traders dynamic index.ex4 file. So whatever directory structure that you have, just make sure to specify that properly. And if you are getting an error in your experts logs saying that indicator not found, then just make sure to check the directory structure is proper. And the next value that we have is the buffer number. So you can always check the buffer numbers based on the buffers that you have in your data window. I'll show you what that looks like. And the final field that we have is time frame. If you don't define this, then it will use the current time frame by default. But if you define the value, for example, we can use 5 for time frame M5, we can use 15 for M15, 30 for M30, for H1 use 60. So this will be the minute value for that particular time frame. So whatever value you select over here, it will use that particular indicator for that particular time frame, and it will get that value inside this variable name. So let's create a strategy from the ground up. These are all default variable names that you get with the indicator, and these are the conditions that you can set up with these variable names. Let me show you the conditions as well, and then we can build our own strategy. So for example, we have RSI, TSL and MBL, these variables, and over here the conditions are as follows. When you use this operator, less than, greater than, then that means that RSI value was less than 32 in the previous bar, and in the current bar the RSI value is greater than 32. And this VB down, this is for volatility band up and down. So this first condition checks that RSI either goes below and then above the 32 value, or RSI goes below and then above the VB down line, and that's the buy condition. And this operator that you have, this is the OR operator. So if you have condition 1 or condition 2, then it will check either this is true or this is true. If at least one of these is true, then it will make buy condition 1 true. And same way for sell condition, we have RSI goes above and then below this 68 level, or RSI goes above and below that volatility band, which was the up volatility band. So for a single condition, you can have as many as 3 possible individual conditions. What I mean by that is, if condition A is true and condition B is true and condition C is true, in that case when all 3 are true, only then buy condition 1 will be true. And if you are using an OR operator, then it will check A is true or B is true, and if any of these conditions are true, in that case condition 1 will be true. And if you have something like this, then it will check either A or B are true and C is true. In that case it will make this whole condition true. And so first of all it will check for buy condition 1, then it will go and check buy condition 2, and you can specify the number of bars for which all of these conditions should be true. So suppose if I have 5 bars, and let's just press OK, and let me just see, let me open the TDI also so I can show you how that works. So let's take this example. RSI goes below this VB lower and then it goes back up. So in that case this B1 condition is true, and then it will wait for 5 bars for B2 condition to also be true, and B2 has already become true before B1 was true right here. So in that case we get this up arrow. Now if you want this B1, B2, B3 check to be sequential, then you can always specify that over here is condition check sequential. In that case it will check first B1 should be true, then B2, then B3 and so on. So now this arrow disappears because only B1 was true, and it waits for 5 more bars for B to be true, but it doesn't happen. So over here individual conditions, you can specify a total number of 3 conditions which it will check on one particular bar, and finally if you have a series of other conditions that you would want to check on bar 2, bar 3 and so on, you can specify those. for buy conditions and same way for sell conditions, and you can have those sequentially. And you can also specify that suppose if I need to wait for 10 bars for all conditions to be true, I can set that over here. So let's take an example. Let's use Darvas boxes to create our own strategy. So for variable 1, I would like the up arrow of Darvas. Now my directory structure is like this. Inside MQL4 folder, I have this indicators folder, and inside that I have this _C folder in which I use all these common indicators, and then I have breakout indicators in here. I have all the channel indicators in here, and so on. So for Darvas boxes, I will be using this ex4 file. So my directory structure is C, breakout, and this. So for variable 1, let me just use suppose Darvas boxes up arrow. That is my variable name. This can be anything as long as it's unique. Next, I have the directory structure for the indicators, and finally the ex4 file name without the .ex4 file extension. And next we have the buffer value. Let me just load up the Darvas. If I run this without setting anything, then it will only check for buy 1 conditions, and since we don't have anything, all of these will be true by default. So let me go over to Darvas and let me open up a new chart for that right here. So this is what the Darvas boxes look like. We have down arrows and up arrows, and as you can see right here, these are all the buffer values that this indicator has. So going back, I'll just apply that. Now we want for Darvas down arrow, we have this down signal, and let's count the values. These 3 values are for the arrows indicator that we have this customizer, and the Darvas boxes, they start from here, top box. So this is buffer 0, buffer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the buffer values, they start from buffer 0, and then we have up signal on buffer 5 and down signal on buffer 6. So I will set that right here. Up is buffer 5. And let me create another variable for Darvas arrows, Darvas down, and that was buffer number 6. Now when D up variable or D down variable are defined, if a buffer is not defined, then that has an empty value. So we would like the condition to be when D up is not an empty value. In Metatrader, empty value is actually an integer value. If you specify that right here, it will check for that value. Same way for sell condition, we would like a down arrow, which means that this down arrow value is not an empty value. Now when I press OK, it will now show you buy and sell arrows right here. Let me remove these boxes temporarily so that you can see. Now our up and down arrows and this B1 and S1 conditions, they align with the Darvas boxes. I'll put the box back. Now as you can see, sometimes we have these ranges, and the Darvas boxes, they do not perform well when price is ranging. So to find out, let me first remove TDI because we don't use that with this strategy. Now to find out when price is ranging or when price is trending, we will use a BB squeeze indicator. So this one. This entire strategy is available on my website, and I will keep adding more and more strategies right here. at the very bottom in the best customizer strategy section, and you can get this you can get all of these indicators and also the set file right here. So PB squeeze indicator is also available for download, and we use all the default values. Now as you can see, when price is consolidating, in that case PB squeeze will show you these red dots, and when price is trending, in that case we get these green dots. And as you can see in the data values, when we have these green dots, this value 5, this particular value, that has something defined, and when we have these red values, in that case this value 6, this one is defined. So we are interested in these value 5, and value 5 corresponds with buffer number 4. You can count this from here, right here. PB squeeze, this is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the fourth buffer is value 5, which is this one. So that's what we are interested in, only these green dots. So I will go back and I will create one more variable, and I will call it PB, and let me just say PB on to give it a very specific name. And the directory structure, that one is also inside this breakout folder. Let me just get the exact name. And the buffer value was 4. So now when BB on this value, so now when we get Darvas up signal and this BB on, this value is not empty. And same way for sell signals, we have this down arrow for a Darvas box, and same way BB on is not empty, means price is trending, only then show us the up and down arrow signals. I'm sorry, I think I made a mistake. I'm actually interested in value 7. When this green dot occurs, we get value 7 as 0, and when this red dot occurs, we get value 6 as 0. So value 7 is actually buffer 6. So I'll change that to buffer 6, and so we only get those green dots. Press OK. Right, in this case this arrow has disappeared for our customizer. Let me remove the Darvas box. So as you can see, this value has disappeared. Now sometimes we still have signals like this, these signals. In that case we can use an additional indicator, something like ADX right here, and we can specify period 14. ADX is actually an inbuilt indicator, so we can write its wrapper and we can get this particular value, which is buffer 0, this ADX value. And as you can see, this one has ADX value 19. So any value which is less than 25, those signals should be ignored. So this down arrow will be ignored, and also this up arrow right here, ADX value is 23. This will also be ignored, and this one as well, 17. So setting ADX, we will get rid of a lot of these signals which are not very useful. And if I create a wrapper indicator for ADX, and I can specify the name of that indicator and buffer value, and finally I can also create an AND condition, something like AND ADX greater than 25, and same way for by condition and ADX greater than 25. In that case it will remove all of those other values. So as you can see, you can define as many of these values as you like, and finally when you have a good strategy, then just save that as a set file. So right now I already have a customizer for Darvas, this set file. So whatever we did right here, we already have a set file for that. And when using the scanner, I'll add the scanner in this new chart. When using the scanner, we can use the exact same strategies that we had for the arrows indicator. So let me add the customizer Darvas. And for the scanner, just be sure to use fewer max pass bars. So maybe something like 20 or 30. So it will only analyze those bars. Let me try it with 50. And for scanner, just make sure that if you're using the arrows indicator and the scanner on the same chart, then use different unique prefixes for both. So let me press OK. So let me go through all the settings for the scanner that we might have previously missed. So in the scanner, you can specify these existing presets, or you can specify your own comma separated own pair list. For example, you are using Bitcoin, or you are using some stock, or whatever your broker provides, you can specify that in the own pair list. And you can specify the number of time frames you would like, and all of these settings are for how the scanner dashboard looks. Next, you can specify when you click on one of these buttons whether or not it should open it in a new chart, and you can also have your own template for that new chart. That template should be in your templates folder, so you can specify that TPL file over here. And if you have open orders, in that case, if you would like to highlight all of these pair names, then you can set this to true. And if you would like to get alerts, you can set these to pop-up alerts, email, push notifications, etc. to true. Now by default, it will show you detailed information like B1, B2, which conditions are true and which conditions are false. Let me go back to the TDI for scanner so that we don't get all of those Darvas boxes. So by default we have this TDI strategy and we have the past 20 bars. Let me press OK. So this is what the scanner will look like if you have a lot of good signals. Let me explain what each of these mean. So we are scanning past 20 bars and it will show you these up and down arrows with bracket numbers, and this means that 5 bars back a down arrow signal had occurred. This means that 15 bars back an up signal had occurred. When you have a signal for the current bar, the shift value which you specify, then it will highlight that particular block and it will show you that on bar 1 we have this where B1 and B2, buy 1 and buy 2 conditions have matched. Same way these S1 and S2 conditions, sell 1 and sell 2 conditions, this one shows, yellow shows that it is still waiting for that condition to match, red shows that the sell condition has matched. Same way right here, yellow shows that it's still waiting for B1 to match, and green shows that B2 condition has matched for shift 1. Now if I specify shift something else, like if you want the signal for say bar 3, then I can specify shift 3, press OK. In that case it will show you this S1 and S2 conditions matching for that particular bar, bar number 3. By default this dashboard will refresh every new bar. So if you are using M5, then I would suggest that you keep your chart to the lowest time frame that you have on the dashboard. Like right here, M5 chart, if you have the M5 as your lowest time frame, But if you would like your dashboard to refresh every few ticks, in that case you can set this refresh number of ticks to something like 100 or 200. In that case it will refresh every 100 or 200 ticks. And if you want to show all these values in the journal in your experts tab, then you can set that to true. That is only for debugging. So you can either go to your logs folder by right clicking here on your experts tab and click on open. So this will take you to your logs folder, or you can always just press view right here and you can open up the log in any text editor, and then you can get all of these values, what that particular bar had for that particular variable right here. So this is only for debugging. Suppose if you are still trying to determine the exact buffer and the values that you have, then you can use that, but by default I would suggest that you keep that to false so that you do not have too many journal logs. Right here we already talked about the max past bars, and finally we have back alerts, past bars, back alerts. You can set this to whatever you like. Suppose we have 5 and shift is, let me set that to 1. So it will scan for the past 5 bars starting at bar 1, and it will show you alerts and it will highlight those particular blocks if signal had occurred 5 bars back. So as you can see, these are also highlighted and we also get these signals for the past bars. We are mostly interested in just closed bar. In that case we can set this to 1, and if you are interested in the current bar which is still forming, in that case you can use shift as 0. But for most indicators we are more interested in the last bar which had fully closed, which is why we keep shift at 1. And recalculate past bars. So mostly we like to use custom indicators which do not repaint, but sometimes certain indicators we would like to keep recalculating those bars for those particular indicators. In that case you can specify, like, I am only interested in the last closed bar, but I would like to always get the refreshed value for the past 5 bars. In that case it will recalculate all of those bars. And we already talked about all of these variables and all of these conditions. So we can specify a total number of 7 buy or sell conditions, and inside each of these conditions we can specify a total number of 3 conditions. We already talked about the wait bars, and we also talked about the sequential check. So right here we have S1 is still not true, but S2 has become true. So if I was using sequential check true, in that case it will first check for S1 and only then go to S2. So as you can see, when sequential check is on, this one turns to none. It hides all of those conditions where S2 was true but S1 was still not yet true. And finally we have all of these colors. This highlight block, you can specify those colors right here for buy and sell signals, and this S1 and S2, these you can specify right here, and this one B1 and B2 colors, you can specify them right here, and this is the neutral color. So suppose B1 is not yet true, then that would be yellow, like right here. If we specify that to false, then B1 and B2 or S1 and S2 which is not yet true, that is the yellow color. So that's the neutral color, and you can change that right over here. So yeah, I think we have covered all the settings for the customizer, and let me just go over some of the things which you need to be aware of. all of this information is on my website as well, so you can use this as a guide. And now what each condition means, this is the part which is important, like what types of operators you can use. So you can have this, suppose variable name is equal to a particular value, not equal to, and this, suppose this variable is more than, or more than and equal to, less than, or less than and equal to. You can use these types of conditions which are very simplistic, but you cannot use a condition like RSI is equal to 30 plus 20, or RSI is equal to 30 divided by 20. Those complex conditions, they will not work. Next, this particular operator, it means that RSI, so it had gone above 70 in the previous bar, and now in the current bar it is below 70. And this one means that RSI in the previous bar was below 30 and now it has crossed above 30. So that is good for, these are like overbought and oversold kinds of conditions. And these are some of the predefined variables that you can use. Suppose if you want to use price open, price close value, price high, price low, and finally this is the empty value. When a buffer is not defined, in that case it uses this empty value, which is an integer value. So you can use that, like for example, these are the separators. You can either use an AND operator, so you can use it something like this one, AND operator, and you can also use the OR operator. This delimiter, it means OR, so right here we are using this as an OR operator. And all of these settings we have already talked about. You can also set the max spread. By default this is 0, which means don't check the spread. But if you specify the spread like say 15 or 20, in that case it will ignore all of those pairs which have spread above 15. And these are all of those variables which you can use for debug values. Now in the arrows indicator, to debug certain values, let me show you. Like when we have, right here we only have B1, but suppose if I wanted to know some of these extra values, like we already talked about, we can get the values in the experts tab, and we can also get detailed value right here on the chart itself. So it will show you which bar and which condition had come true for that particular bar. So you can use these debug messages to further check out why the customizer is working for which particular condition. And we have already talked about the scanner conditions. And any of these customizer strategies that I will be creating in the future, I'll keep adding them right here, and when you download that, you will get all the indicators which I have used inside that particular strategy along with the set file for the customizer. And if you have any particular strategy which you feel is very profitable, then please feel free to share it with me so that it can help other people. And I'll, as and when I make changes to this, I'll keep adding that in the changelog right here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this customizer. Please check it out, download this for free and try using it, and let me know your thoughts and comments in the comments box below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I know this is a long video, but thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. Thanks, guys.